So last week or so, I did a weapons tier list for Winters 2021, and I figured that did well, so why not do a legend tier list as well? Now this time, I guess you guys can notice a few things right off the bat. First of all, yeah, it's legends, not weapons. But second of all, the big one is the fact that the tiers are actually like more defined and more separated, I guess. Because the weapons one, everything was really close. However, I feel like you can separate stuff a little bit more when it comes to the characters, so I'm going to do that. A few more things, I'm just going to go down the line, and also, if I feel like I don't need to talk about the legend, I'll just place him there and move on to the next. Thatch right now, he has a true combo. He is low defense. However, I don't really think that matters too much. I mean, especially in ones. I think he is one of the 4 defense legends that makes a lot more sense to play right now. He has the true combo, D-Light and Sig. His sword and blaster combo is really good, really high strength, high speed. I mean, he's a pretty optimal character as far as forward defense goes, and the weapon combination is really strong as well. So I think he's honestly a solid A tier. Ada is hard because I feel like she could belong in A tier for now, and I might make adjustments at the end, but I'm going to put her at B. I don't think her signatures are nearly as good as Thatch's. I think Thatch's are honestly maybe a little bit better, although Ada, don't get me wrong, she has strong ones on her spear kit especially, and I think the gun ones are all right. Like overall, they're okay. Blaster D-Sig does exist, and it is kind of bad. It's not the best thing in the world, and again, she is 3 defense, 4 defense at most. But, I mean, Spear, Blasters, the Sigs, it's okay legend. B, still above average. Sentinel, now I'm going to be quick about this guy. I mean, he's S tier. I think he's super slept on. I rarely see many people play him. And he has Hammer, he has Guitars, which are recently-ish buffed. And all the Sigs on him are super good. I mean, you have the damage building Guitars, right? And then you can get the kills with Hammer. The Sig kit and the stats are just ridiculous. Super high defense, relatively high speed or above average speed. It makes him for a really good character. So Lucian, I was thinking about putting him in A, but honestly, I'm gonna put him in B for now. Now again, B's not saying they're bad by any means. When you get to C, that's when they're like, okay, this legend exists and they can be good, but why are you really playing him? And then D is like that, just kind of questioning why you're even touching the legend. But yeah, B, I mean, it's not bad. The signatures are still really good. Guitars, again, really good. The stats, awesome. And blasters, they're pretty good. I mean, I think overall he's a solid legend. It's just a question of why really play him. But at the same time, he's good, so it doesn't matter. So I'm putting Taros in S tier. Man, I think Taros, like that side sig buff on Hammer, I think all his Hammer sigs and all his axe sigs as well, they kill so early. I'm looking at this like overall 1v1 and 2v2. And yeah, I mean, Taros is a freak. Now, you could say, like, I think personally, a legend like Val is really volatile to him. And the fact that she has sword and gauntlets can really do well into Taros. But with that being said, I mean, if you play Taros right, especially in 2s, man, that legend's an absolute creature. Everything kills just super early. I mean, he's relatively easy to play as well, and the stats are good as well. So, it doesn't really matter. It makes up for it. You can work with it. So Brynn for me is also going to be an S tier. I think right now, Brynn's spear mainly is what puts her in here. I think spear kit overall is insane. The stats as well are overall pretty balanced, but has a little bit higher speed, which is pretty good. And then also the axe signature. I mean, axe and Sig in particular. I mean, this character's like both Taros and Brynn are just definitions of like alpha characters. So like I'm assuming eventually they're going to get looked at, but if they ever do, I don't know. All I know is like when you have a signature doing 40 damage in Spear D-Sig, you're definitely going to be an S tier. Alright, so I made a quick adjustment. I added A+, because actually I was going to put a Suri there, but I'm moving down Taros there as well because he does have 2 slower weapons. But anyways, a Suri is a really strong pick at the moment. I don't think she's necessarily the best Guitars character, but because she has Guitars paired with Sword, that makes her really stable. And also with Guitars, having 7 decks is good because you can do N-Light into D-Light, and it should be consistently 1 frame. I'm not entirely sure. But she's like one of the better Guitar legends for sure. And then Sword makes her a really easy character to play. And the stats, like I said, they just work well for both of the weapons. Barraza, honestly, it's hard because that Blaster D-Sig buff did him so dirty when it came to killing. Like if he had that Blaster D-Sig still, I'd probably put him, for the same reason I put Brynn here, I'd probably put him in S because the Sigs were just so good, or at least that there was one Sig in particular that was just clearly super overtuned. But because of that, and also his axe kit is super strong, I'm gonna put him in A+. I mean, you guys have seen what Cody's been able to do with this character. I think Barraza, having that high defense, he's probably my favorite blaster legend to play. And I also think the pairing of blasters and axe is good, but he kind of has the same problem that Taros does, with the fact that he has 2 weapons that if you are playing a weapon like katars or gauntlets or even sword, that you're supposed to get inside and play like inside the blaster dead zones, or like you're throwing out faster moves than an axe attack, well, then he's gonna have problems. So he's gonna be an A+. The same reason why I put Taros in A+ is because both of them are, I think, extremely good. It's just the fact that the slower weapons hurt them a bit. Ember, I think Ember is right there with Thatch. Strong 4 defense or 3 defense pick. The sig hit is really, really good. Doesn't have any like weird true combos like Thatch, but I think everything, I mean, solid katars, solid bow. Just again, you could argue held back by the stats, at least in 2v2s. In 1v1s, again, that's not really a big deal, but I think Ember's a solid A. So this one, you guys might disagree with this one a lot, but I'm putting Azoth in S tier. I think Azoth is an absolute freak. There's been a period of time where BMG or Blue Myth Games, they like to buff characters that don't get played much, and Azoth was right there. He was one of those legends that got a buff for what I think no reason. He was already really good before the buffs, and then this was a while ago, but he did get those buffs, and now he's just like an absolute insane creature. Bow's really good. Axe is there, it's easy. I guess you can say it's good for killing, but the big thing that's good for killing is the sigs and the stats. The stats, I'll just say really quick, solid overall. You could probably play him with speed stance normally, and that puts him at 5 speed, so that's probably what most people are going to run. But the sigs on this guy are just unfair in so many ways. I mean, they have extremely long lingering hitboxes. Bow's side sig is insane. Bow and sig, for some reason, if you miss the first shot, there's another guy, like some ghost up above you that gets to shoot. And then axe, I mean, you have axe, D sig, side sig, N sig. They're all really, really fast, and they all have great force. So if you're looking for a new bow legend to play or a new axe legend to play, I think you should take advantage of Azoth right now. I don't think he's going to be going anywhere. A legend I hope, though, that goes somewhere is Bodvar. Bodvar, easy S, balanced stats, hammer's really good, sword's overall strong. His sigs are criminal, though. I mean, you do D-Light D-Sig on sword, and you're dying in yellow. It doesn't make much sense to me. He hits what I think is debatably too hard in some ways, at least like maybe the bear, the N-Sig on Bodvar, and mainly the D-Sig on sword. I mean, you guys might be saying, oh, it's just one move. Guys, that one move is so potent because it can be used out of a D-Light. It can be used as a string that you can't jump out of if you have no dodge. So you don't really understand how good Bodvar is until you get hit by a D-Light D-Sig and you can't escape it, or you just get spiked by a D-Sig in general. Because if you're a good Bodvar player, you're going to take advantage of how good some of the SIGs are. And yeah, it is something else. Koji, I'm going to put an S. I think he's overall just really, really strong. There's not really a weak SIG on him. You have some really strong ones, though. You have like sword side SIG. You have bow D-Sig, which I don't understand the hitboxing on that at all. But anyways, I think that you could argue the worst SIG on him is his sword D-Sig. And even then, that thing's really strong. I think people undervalue it. The stats are probably the worst part about him. Sword and bow, though, are really good. And just overall, he's so solid. It's hard to argue that he wouldn't be an S. So Olgrim actually got hit pretty hard by a nerf that they did to his N-Sigs, I'm pretty sure. Now, neither of them hit grounded. With that being said, though, I would argue that Olgrim's probably still in an A position. I think Lance got a lot better with recent patches, and then Axe as well, again, pretty solid. His stats are amazing. The weapons, pretty good at killing, and the SIGs on them, I think, are strong as well. They're not like anything out of this world. Maybe Axe D-Sig is, but yeah, not much else to say. So Diana, I'm going to put in the A+ category. Now, Diana, I think her bow kit is mainly what gets her here. The stats are balanced, but I think a lot of people should be playing speed on the character. With speed, you're going to have 7 of it, and I think that's like really, really good. But I think the bow and blasters combo, some people may have trouble killing with that. I know that's been a complaint I've heard before. So I don't think she's going to be in an S tier at all, but I think that bow kit alone, if you're a bow main, she is so worth playing because I think she has the best bow kit in the game. Not going to say too much about Zola. Zola, glass cannon, I mean, got the SIGs on her, but for defense, glass cannon, you know how it is, A tier. So core, I think core is absolutely disgusting. All the SIGs, I mean, gauntlet D-Sig, gauntlet N-Sig spiking you down, gauntlet side SIG. Hammer N-Sig, I mean, to add insult to injury, you can also use Hammer D-Sig, but that thing's like probably the weakest out of all the SIGs. I think, though, the Hammer N-Sig is out of this world. It's ridiculous. The stat spread also is not that bad. And yeah, Gauntlet's hammer as a combination, I think that's pretty good. Shang, given the state of Spear and the fact that this guy's never been touched, I'm going to put the bald bad boy up in S tier. Best Spear in the game, I still think, even though Brynn does have some pretty goofy stuff herself. And the fact that he has gauntlets with that, it just makes him for a good character. So I'll say 3 things for Val. The stat spread's amazing, she has gauntlets, and also sword Ensig. So it took me a minute. I thought about Ragnir, and I think I'm going to put him in A+. The axe kit's amazing, axe Ensig in particular, and then the guitar kit as well, I think is overall just super strong. So if you're looking for a guitar character that has relatively high defense or above average defense, has an easy second weapon to play, an axe, and like overall strong sigs, he's your guy. So Cross, I think, is really strong. His stat spread is honestly all right, and gauntlets and blasters together is really good. But the gauntlet kit is what makes him just over the top. I think his gauntlet sigs are so good, and the blaster ones aren't that bad either. But gauntlet side sig, gauntlet end sig are just terrifying, and gauntlets alone are terrifying. So when you put them on this character, he's just so good. So Mirage, I'm going to put an A+. I think the Spear kit is just ridiculous, and with Spear being really good, she's a good pick. The stats are all right. I think they're, you know, not bad, but they're not amazing either. And then pairing with Scythe is pretty good. I think a couple of the Scythe sigs are all right, but yeah, I mean, it's just good character. Oh, man. I'm going to put Cassidy in A. Just because the sigs carry her so hard. Hammer's good. If Hammer wasn't as good, then I would probably put her down in like B or B+, but I mean, that carries her super, super hard. I think speed, though, is just such an important stat, and she doesn't have that at all. So the fact that she's making it in A is just a testament. So Nyx, I'm putting in A+. I think Nyx sigs they're absurd. I was going to put her in S, but I think because she can be quite a hard legend to play, that's going to bump her down a bit, because I think ease of use is something you have to look at. But the sigs on Nyx are amazing. The stat spread on Nyx is amazing. Not much else to say. So Mordex to me is an S tier. I think he has the best kit for Scythe in the game, and I also think his gauntlet kit is really, really good. Also, his stats are good. So I'm only putting Yumiko in A because right now Bow and Hammer are like 2 of the best weapons in the game. Other than that, the stats aren't super impressive. The sigs on Bow especially aren't really either. Now the sigs on Hammer I think are really good, but the Bow sigs are meh. Bow D-sig drops, which is like really sucky because you want to use it on edge especially, and that's where it drops, unfortunately. So yeah, I mean, I can't really say too much else aside from she's lucky that she made A. So Artemis is a super strong A+ character, super good sigs all around the board. I think that Lance is kind of what moves her around within the tiers, but yeah, the super high speed on Scythe, the super strong sigs makes her just really, really strong. So Caspian's weird to me. I feel like Caspian is really, really good, but I always ask myself, like, why would I ever play Caspian? He's a character that's gotten buff after buff and people still don't play him, and I think it's just because both of his weapons are very, very similar. Katars are super good right now, and gauntlets are also really, really good right now, but it's just like, why would you ever play him? That's really it. I don't really have much else to say. So Pirate V2 or Sidra, I'm gonna put her in A+. I don't think I really have a reason to put her anywhere else. No one's really playing her. I mean, we have the Ninja in EU playing this character and doing work with it. She's strong. You know, Sword D-Sig. Cannon is newly buffed again. The stats are also really strong. I think it's just a good combination. I mean, most sword characters that have like a strong string weapon are going to be like in the higher tiers. So for me, Zola is going to be an A+ character. Now with Zola, what's nice about him, and I think what makes him an A+ character, is the fact that high strength makes you not have to rely on his signature kit, which can be considered like, and some people think it's good. Some people are like, oh, he only has like 1 or 2 good sigs. But yeah, that's high strength just carries him super hard with it. And I think Cannon and Axe having that is super good as well. So Kaya, possibly the best 2v2 character in the game. She's got bow, she's got spear. 2 weapons that have climbed super high in the rankings recently. The signature kit also is really good, and then the stats are just disgustingly broken as well. I mean, you add that all together, and then you have this absolute freak of a legend. So yeah, Kaya is just a strong S tier. Isaiah is weird because I think Isaiah is pretty good. He's got some strong sigs, but the stat spread's okay. It's not like there's anything holding him back. It's just a question of, why would you ever pick up Isaiah instead of Onyx, instead of Zola, instead of Sidra? There's so many other choices, and even with blasters, I mean, you know, Barraza, like, unless you really like Isaiah that much, there's not much of a reason to play him, even though I think he's overall pretty good. So you guys probably could have guessed it. I put Jiro in C tier. I mean, man, Jiro's just, he was so disappointing. They made him a cool character. Like, he's pretty cool, but his stats, terrible. His Scythe sigs, not that great. Sword Sigs, for some reason, hit way too hard. I just hope that they end up reworking this character to make him more fitting for his role and like the stats, because having him be an average strength character that has Sigs that can kill you like super early on sword just doesn't make any sense to me. On the other end though, we have Orion, which I think is an A+. Not going to talk too much about his spear, but his lance, I think he's an A+ because his lance is super strong. Now, with that being said, he could be a step lower or a step above. It just depends on where Lance exactly is in the current patch. I haven't really played too much of it, and I haven't played against it too much. So he very well could be an S tier character, especially with that spear combination and the stats. It's just hard to tell. So just get her out of the way real quick. Lin Fei, B+, doesn't have like really great stats. I mean, with guitars, I think the stats are pretty good. The Sigs on the character are all right. But again, it's just kind of a question of why would you play Isaiah or Lin Fei when there's clearly better choices. Now, Zariel's the character with kind of like untapped potential because the character Sigs still drop for no good reason. With that being said, I'm going to put Zariel in A. Now, if Zariel's Sigs were consistent and like didn't have these weird drops, probably an A+ character, but until that time, until that day, that fabled day, just going to remain an A. People used to joke around about Rayman and make fun of him, but this guy's just a straight up S tier character. I mean, the Axe Sigs are all bonkers. The Gauntlet Sigs are pretty much the same. I mean, the stat spread as well. This guy's so good. If you haven't played it up against a Rayman and you're like, why is he S tier? Just wait. You'll know why. So Dusk is the Isaiah of Orb characters. Why would you ever really play Dusk? His Sigs aren't bad. Orb's really good. Spear's really good. Just why? You have Fate. You have Petra. You have Thor. Why are you ever going to touch this guy? There's no reason. There's no reason at all. His Sigs hit hard, and they are overall really good, but they're very small in hitboxing, which makes them sometimes hard to land. The stat spread isn't, like, absurd, but, he's still good. So these three, Fate, Thor, and Petra, are all going to be S tier to me. I think that they all have great stats, great signatures, and Orb's just really good. So the Bootleg Transformer is going to go in S tier. Vector right now is just a legend that no one really plays too much. He was like Vrax when Vrax was just super OP, and no one really played Vrax then. But yeah, Vector has the stat spread. He has the Lance Sig kit. He has Bow, and the Bow kit is amazing. He just has like the whole package pretty much, and it's just no one's really interested in him. I'm sure eventually we'll see someone pick him up, and we'll see how good he is. But until then, he's just kind of like that sleeper S tier pick. So I'm going to put Volkov in A+. I think that he's only hindered by his stats. Not much else to say. The Sigs are all really good. And yeah. So the fact that Cannon got buffed and Gauntlets didn't change just probably puts Onyx back in the S tier. Onyx stats are really good. The signatures on both the weapons are absurd, especially on Cannon. Definitely a good pickup right now. So I'm going to put Lord Vrax in B. High Dex really isn't favorable. It doesn't do anything for his weapons. Both his weapons aren't bad, but they're not like outstanding in any way. And the signature kit is probably his best point. But with that being said, he's not out of this world. I'll say it. I think Jaehyun is still an S tier character. I think Jaehyun Sigs are still so absurd. None of the Greatsword Sigs were nerfed. Now, Greatsword itself, yeah, it's weaker. But with that being said, we haven't seen anyone use the character. I think once we see someone use this again, we're going to realize that Greatsword's still the same thing. No one knows how to play against it. The Sigs are basically the same. He's paired with Sword. His stats are great. He's just really good. Mako's going to be an S tier right by Jaehyun. I think Mako has super strong stats, really high speed. Great Sword, I think, is still very good. And the guitar kit on this character is absurd, alongside like Great Sword D-Sig. But, I mean, it's just an amalgamation of things on this character. And I think until we see someone play this character in tournament, people don't realize how good this character actually is. So if you're playing Nash really for the Sigs. I mean, he literally is, at least in my eyes at this point, the character to spam Sigs on. They're all so good, and that's definitely the highlight of him. The stat spread, especially for Spear, really isn't favorable, so I don't like it too much. But if you're playing this character, I think he's in 2s a really good pick if you learn how to, like, there's a lot of like tricks and stuff you can do with like the Sigs. So if you learn that, he's going to be super strong. Queen Nai is going to be a B+, and honestly, that just is because she has like pretty strong Sigs. Other than that, like the stats kind of hold her back with that super slow speed. And also on guitars, it's not really favorable to have low dex, so there's better choices you could have with legends that have just better stats for the weapon and overall. So don't know why you would really play Queen Nai right now unless you're like super dedicated to the character and you just really know how to abuse the Sigs. The reason I'm putting Hattori in A is because although she has Spear and Sword and pretty good stats, I think that sometimes killing with her is a bit of a problem. Hitori's a legend that's either, oh, you know, pretty strong in 2s, like a staple 2s character, and solid in 1s, or she's like super broken, where they just super overtune like one of her weapons, or they just make SIGs on the character unbelievably strong. With that being said though, still really good pick. I mean, you can play her in either game mode. It just might mean that killing is sometimes a bit harder. I honestly think Roland's going to be the sleeper pick out of the A+ characters. I think Roland is really good, that high defense, that lance, that sword combination. The signatures, especially on the sword and like lance D-Sig, are all really, really good. It's just that no one's playing him, so it's kind of hard to really say this. So I'm just going to go out on a limb and say Roland's an A+. One might say that S tier stands for Scarlet. Scarlet has the cheesy SIGs, has the cheesy weapon combination. She's just a beast. Not much else to say. Just the queen of like stupid stuff and the queen of cheese. Lastly, we have Magyar. Magyar to me, I think, is a B tier character. The SIGs aren't super impressive. I feel like they got terrified after they made Jaehyun and Mako and the backlash they got. So then they released a character with the mediocre SIGs on release. Now, if these SIGs were to be buffed, I mean, you bet that this character would probably be S tier. But also the stats, like, you never really need 9 defense, but it's there, I guess, and that's okay. But yeah, not much to say right now. No one's playing Magyar, and I think Magyar is just a boring character and doesn't have anything super amazing about them. Finally, so that does it for the tier list. If you guys have any comments on this tier list, or if you would move any legend around, let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace, everyone.